Good day, students. Today we are going to talk about sales forecasting and we will be starting our unit 3. We have completed till unit 2 and we will start our unit 3 today. So, very simply, if you want to tell like sales forecasting, which we are very aware about, like no we always tell it is something which you are going to predict your future sales. Every company wants to know how much sales that they will make in future, and it has so many reasons to do that. You want to know because you want to know how much profit you'll be making, or you want to know that sales because you want to arrange your finance accordingly your production has to happen. So there are so many things which is interrelated, and everything is, as we always tell, business means money. And you want to know how much money you make in the business, and accordingly you have to plan for it. So very simple terms, sales forecasting means predicting the future sales for a company. Okay, still getting more elaborate and looking at the definition. Obviously, it is a estimate of sales, which is the very common thing that we say. And obviously, it is again the specific future period. But here we have some specifications. This estimate is tied to a proposed marketing plan. And how are you estimating this, making this future prediction based on whatever is your marketing plan that you have? And this marketing plan assumes that there are controllable and competitive forces, meaning like whenever you prepare a marketing plan, we already discussed some marketing environment, right? We had an internal marketing environment, we also had an external marketing environment. So you know what is the environment in which your business is operating. According to the environment only, we also discussed that we will be designing the 4 Ps. Obviously, then it means that you will also develop a marketing plan for your organization according to the environment in which you are operating. In this particular case, so when you are developing a marketing plan, so you will assume some of the environmental factors to be fixed, or to be constant, or you expect some changes in the environmental factor. You are assuming some environmental factors, and based on those only you will develop a marketing plan, and according to this marketing plan you are estimating the sales. This is what is all about your sales forecasting. Okay. So moving further, many of us have a very common doubt, like what is then demand forecasting? Is sales forecasting and demand forecasting one and the same? From your syllabus point of view, you have your sales forecasting methods and other things which you will study, but this one part of sales forecasting versus demand forecasting is not your syllabus. But I just thought it would be very nice if you know what is this. If you can have some guesses, that is fine, but still, what is this difference? Generally we say a forecast is a prediction, where as simple as it's saying, like no, forecast of demand is for demand forecasting, forecast of sales is sales forecasting. But there should be, technically telling, there should be some difference, right? Because we very easily tell, like no, based on the demand only sales will happen, or it sounds to be similar, but there are some few things which we need to understand. What is the difference between demand and sales forecasting? Forecast is usually uh, based on some mathematical analysis or statistical analysis or something like that, right? We'll be seeing also in future, like no, in the due course of our class, how this forecasting can be done. Okay, but there are so many other things which comes into the forecast, especially when you do the sales forecast. Sales forecast is primarily done based on whatever was your past history of sales. But beyond the past history of sales, beyond that, there are so many other things like competitor action, or there may be a new product introduced, or any change in the demographic trends, or sales or marketing actions, or it may be some even some small actions which the company itself will be planning. So all this is being included when it comes to the future demand. So whenever you do any forecast of demand, you will be including all these such things like whatever I was telling you. Okay, but when it comes to sales, it is mostly like no, only with the whatever is the past history and some considerations which we take in. So when we do a demand forecast, it will include all the adjustments, like as I said, competitor introduction, all the other cases, and they add all those things. And most importantly, they will include the distribution consideration, where to hold the inventory, and at what time the delivery has to be done. It is as simple as telling like no how the finished goods will move from the factory to the final buyer or consumer. So it is very important that the distribution consideration is included in the demand forecast, but that is not included in the sales forecasting. Usually, the procedure is the company will always start with the sales forecasting, and based on that sales forecast, they bring in all the distribution consideration, the inventory plan, and ultimately, based on this distribution plan, it will lead to like know what is the demand and how much has to be produced at the factory. So this is what is the difference between a sales forecast and a demand forecast. Okay, so we will move further to the methods of sales forecasting. The very first method which we would like to discuss today is the opinion survey method. As the name says, it is very simple. You take a survey. I'm sure everyone would had an opportunity to attend a survey. For example, when you go out for shopping, maybe on the before the retail outlet store, you will have a salesperson or like no a service representative who will stand with a very simple questionnaire and maybe give you some sample product or a product, or even without the sample product he will try to collect answers with the questionnaires, right? So that is the survey. So basically what we do in our survey is we try to give our opinion. So the opinion survey which is taken is used for forecasting the sales. Now, here, as simple as it, the customers will be like no told to communicate their buying intentions for the near future. So it is like almost like you are asking directly to your customer through a questionnaire. When we say a survey, one of the tool that we use for survey is questionnaire. So customers will be asking to communicate their buying intentions, whether they'll buy this particular product in the near future, if they are planning to buy that particular product, how much will they buy, when will they buy. So you are probing the customer to answer. Okay, and based on these results, you will identify and how many units, basically like no what is the quantity they will buy and from which sources they will buy. So this is a method which has been followed, is called as the opinion survey method. But there are some advantages and disadvantages with each method. The advantage of this particular method is it is more applicable for industrial products, because in industrial products what happens is the uh, B2B buyers, what we call, no, this B2B buyers are very clear, like, no, what, how much purchases they will be make, because they know that what is the demand in the market, etc. And accordingly, like, no, they will be able to communicate what is that they will be buying, where will they be buying, and how much they will be buying. So in those cases, this opinion survey method is more popular for industrial products. Of course, it has its own demerits. It is very expensive and time consuming. Why do we say time consuming? Is because you have to go and walk to every customer and find out, like, no, how much they'll buy, when they will buy, what they will buy. So you collect lot of responses from each and every customer, which is a time consuming process. But when it comes to expensive, you may think that is just a piece of paper, like, no, which is being circulated. But practically telling, when you are giving taking the survey, obviously you are employing people. Say if I divide Chennai into five areas, in all those five areas, if I want to collect, I have to employ people who will collect questionnaires for me. Obviously I have to pay them, right? So it becomes an expensive. So depending upon your geographical location and spread, accordingly you have to find out how many people you need to do this survey. So it also becomes an expensive. Nobody is going to go and take a survey at free of cost. You need to pay your people. And difficult to forecast is, you need to like, no, summarize all this, because you have to do an analysis. What is there, uh, potential buyers, how much they will buy, what they will buy, when they will buy, all those things you have to consolidate. So and based on that only, you will be telling what is your sales forecast. Since you are taking it directly from the customer's opinion, it is called as opinion survey method. The second method is the Salesforce composite method. Whom do we usually call as a sales force? The sales people, right? So every organization will have sales people with them. So the sales people is what we are referring as sales force. And when we say sales force composite method, it means we are taking the opinion of the salespeople, and composite means all together, which we are taking. So that is what is called as the Salesforce composite method. It is also called as collective opinion method. Why do we say collective opinion? In the sense, because the collective opinion of the salesperson is being taken into account. And as we were telling already, the salesperson, every salesperson in the organization will be giving an estimate how much is the sales in his respective sales region, by area wise or territory wise or state wise, however their distribution sales people has been divided. So everyone will tell him how much from each particular area or region will come. And this is all the individual sales forecast will be added together to get the total company's forecast. So this is what is being done in a Salesforce composite method. The biggest advantage of this Salesforce composite method is that every salesperson will have some specialized knowledge. So that knowledge is made used to calculate the sales forecast. And the salesmen also are very confident and responsible to meet the quota fixed, because they have given it, like, no, they know what is the market in that particular area or region, and they have promised or they have told like this much of sales can happen. So in this particular case, obviously the salesmen feel very confident and responsible. And since he has given the data what he is going to meet targets, so he is like, no, acting in a very wise manner and in a smart manner, and will try to achieve that target. And it also facilitates breakdown in terms of products, territories, customer and salesman, etc. as the salespeople has been giving it by different region or territory wise, they themselves will also be able to give the breakdown, how much breakdown in terms of product or in terms of customer or across territories or salesman can also be done. But of course there are some disadvantages too. It depends on the competency of the salesman. If the salesman is a very highly competent person, then he'll be able to predict the sales very rightly. But if the salesman does not have the competency, what has to be done? In that particular case, he may even quote less. Since he is not capable enough, he is not giving you the very right number. And this estimation will differs with commitment of salesperson. Some salespeople will be very aggressive salespeople. So this aggressive salespeople may give you a high number, whereas quite reserved or lower performing salespeople, they'll give you a very low number too. So these are the advantages and disadvantages we discussed about Salesforce composite method. The third one is the test marketing method. What happens in this test marketing method is the products are introduced in a very limited small geographical area and the result is studied. Based on whatever is the result in that particular geographical area, accordingly, the sales forecast will be made. This is what is called as test marketing. What we usually do is no, we try to test it in a very smaller area or in a very specific area. Okay. The advantages is reliable because you have really tested it in one particular area, and you can also know no, when you're doing it personally in that particular area, you know what are the advantages or no, what was the feedback of the people, what are the disadvantages, and accordingly you can rectify also. But it is suitable only for new products in a new territory. And the difference is compared with other methods, it is not homogeneous market. Whatever market we are discussing is not a homogeneous market, right? Why do we say market is not homogeneous? Meaning every market has its own characteristics. When you are doing test marketing, you are testing it only in one particular market and you are applying that results for across other regions or across other markets. So that means since the market is not homogeneous, the results what you got in one particular market cannot be applicable for the other markets. Obviously, it is time consuming and it will also be a costly effort. Usually, what happens is whenever it is time consuming, the amount of effort that you put in is also growing, right? So, it is becoming a costly affair. The fourth method is jury or executive opinion method. As the name implies, the executives no, who will be giving you their opinion. The first method that we saw under opinion survey method, the feedback there will be given by the customers. Here it is with the jury or the executive opinion. So one or more of the executives, whoever is very experienced and have good knowledge of the market factors, make out the expected sales. So in this particular method, the based on the experience, the results will come out. Experience of the executive member. Obviously, the merit is very simple and quick, and you need not have very detailed data. All you require is a good knowledge of the market factors, and you must be able to assess the people. So that is what happens in the jury or executive opinion method. Whereas you also have disadvantages. It is not based on factual data. It is difficult to draw a final
conclusion. Why it is difficult to draw a final conclusion is because we just take a few executives, and based on whatever knowledge they have, that is what is reflected in the final sales forecast number. So that is why we always say, since it is not based on factual data, it is very difficult to draw a final decision. The fifth method of sales forecast is called as past sales. It is the most simplest sales forecasting method that has been adopted. It is also known as historical method. And this past sales are good basis, and because this is what the company has been operating and this is what the company has been performing. That is what your past sales data tells. And so their basic future sales can be formulated and forecasted. Usually the most very simple method they do is they take a percentage. So last year if they have done say uh, 200 units they have sold, they will take a percentage. Say they will say 20% add. So 20% of 200 they will add, and finally they will get a what is the sales that has been predicted for sales that is predicted for 2020. So under this method, the sales forecast is made by adding simply a flat percentage or sales. So the next one, what we will be discussing is the statistical method. Under statistical method, a time series analysis will be done, and it is again based on the method of studying historical data. You will take the past sales figures as the base and analyze it and adjust it to the future trends. The very biggest advantage of statistical method is it's purely merit oriented. There is no guesswork, like no thinking about it or giving a thought process. It is very simple and expensive, and they focus on objective, whatever is objective for that statistical analysis, that is being focused upon. Whereas there is also some disadvantages. It does not consider any market dynamics. Market dynamics in the sense like any changes in the market, and there is no provision for uncertainty. Say suppose some uncertainty like COVID-19 happens, not especially COVID-19, any kind of uncertainty that is happening, that is not being considered in the statistical method. It is purely an objective oriented method. Okay. Now, we saw all these methods of sales forecasting. Quickly going through, the first one is opinion survey method, Salesforce composite method, test marketing method, jury or executive opinion method, past sales, statistical method. A very common question that can be expected in the question paper is, what is sales forecasting? What are the different types of sales forecasting with their advantage and disadvantage? Okay. Now, these are also sales forecasting itself. The topic itself is quite very important topic. Then we will look at what are the factors which is going to influence the sales forecast. So I have listed out few. I'm sure this will all have some influence of it. So when I take any general economic condition, like uh, the best example that we can see in today's, the disposable income of the people have reduced. That there is a change in the consumer habits in this COVID-19 period. So the way general economic condition like your inflation, deflation, your net national income, disposable income, consumer habits, change, all this is referring to the general economic condition which will affect your sales forecast. And if you take the consumers also, the consumers will differ by their age, gender, uh, like no by their religion, and so many other consumer characteristics. So based on this consumer characteristics, there will be a change in the or there will be an influence in the sales forecast. The industrial behavior is also different. Say every industry has some specific characteristics, right? Uh, there is so much of change in technology happening. So with the change in technology, new products come up, or the industry may be an unstable. So depending upon the industry or product specific also will influence the sales forecast. The changes within the firm. Say, if a company is going to diversify into new zones, if you look at recent times, there were a lot of companies who ventured into this, like no sanitizers, hand wash, or like no these kind of medical supplies items because of the change in the industrial environment, right? No, and accordingly there will be a lot of changes which is happening inside the company. So the changes inside the company will also influence the sales forecast. The last one which we will talk about is the time period. The time period can be a short run, medium run, or a long run. So depending on the time period when the consumers will buy, or how long will they use that particular product, also that influences the sales. The last one is, which we will talk about, importance of sales forecasting. Why should we do this sales forecasting? You should know what is the supply and demand in the market. There should be a good inventory control inside the organization. This is what we were talking about, demand forecasting. Whenever we do sales forecasting, usually based on some data, based on the history, but you need to also consider the distribution as well as the inventory point of view also, which is called as a good inventory control. And allocation and reallocation of sales territories. So depending upon, say for example, if you're done using your Salesforce composite method, or you know what is the uh, sales that is going to happen in the future, accordingly you need to find out, like no, whether you need more manpower in one particular area, or whether you need to reduce the manpower in another particular area. So accordingly, allocation and reallocation of sales territories will be done. Obviously, it's a forward planner in terms of organizing the sales force, or in terms of arranging funds, or in terms of like no, it is going to act as a base for production. The second point very quickly tells, it's an indicator to the finance department. Indicator to the finance department, because the finance department has to plan all the funds accordingly, as you know how much sales is going to happen. It also acts as a measure for the efficiency for the salesperson. So the salesperson can be given a target, and at the end of the day, or end of the month, or quarter, or year, you are going to assess the salesperson based on the target that you gave him. It will also help to regularize production. Obviously, right? When we worked on sales forecasting first, then it comes to demand forecasting, which will consider your distribution. It becomes a forward planner for the production department. So your production also gets regularized. And this will also help to makes regularize the sales personnel and the sales quotas. So the sales personnel at the beginning itself, he knows like no what is the target he is going to reach, and what is the quota that he has to work upon. So these are all few important aspects of sales forecasting. So we will wind up today's session with this. Sales forecasting is a very important topic in all aspects. Please make sure, it's quite theoretical, but please make sure that you give importance when you prepare for your exams. Uh, Thank you.